What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Anything Liverpool podcast and live stream with myself, Harjeet, Ben, and Ardril. We have with us today. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday with regards to all of the news that we're going to be going through over the next hour of your time. But before we do get into all of that, make sure that if you haven't done so already, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos as well, so that you never miss out. And if you're currently watching us on Twitter or X, you can jump down into the comments down below and you'll see a link straight over to the YouTube page. We'd very much appreciate a follow. We're going to be getting lots more content out to you guys over the remainder of the transfer window. So hopefully you guys are around for that. But without further ado, what I will do is I will pass it over to my panel mates and we'll see how everybody's going after that weekend of Premier League action. All calm and no head loss and nobody losing the run of themselves at all in this fan base after losing a 2-goal lead to Bournemouth to then only turn around and smack another 2 goals in and win the game. So, yeah, anybody that's new to being a Liverpool fan, you can get used to that. But Ben, I'll throw it over to you first, my friend. Second time you're back on stream with myself. Thank you so much for joining us on a Monday evening. How has your weekend been? Did you enjoy the games? Was there any game other than the Liverpool game that was your favourite? How are you feeling after our result as well? And then we kind of jump into the news after that when I get everybody else's thoughts on it too.
Yeah, all good, all good. I think obviously the elation of that late win on Friday, sort of bit of a hangover onto the Saturday. I think it's really difficult to interpret things after 1 week of football, certainly in the Premier League. I don't think anything from my perspective has changed. City are where you'd expect City to be, 4 goals. You know, Chelsea again, a stumbling start, but we know what they can bring to the table. If anything, United looked slightly more impressive than I thought they were going to be. I appreciate that's against Arsenal, who are, guaranteed second at best. But I don't think they're title contenders, but I do think they'll have an impact on the title race, based on holding a couple of the top four clubs, maybe more accountable. I don't think there'll be a pushover like there have been the last couple of years. But yeah, as I say, I think a lot of elation from Friday. A good result for us. Obviously, some things to improve on, but for an opening day, we outscored and we got the 3 points, and that's what needed to be done.
Yeah, 3 points is all that matters. That's the way that I have always looked at it. Whether we sprint over the line, walk over the line, fall over the line, as long as there's 3 points there at the end of the day, I'll take 37 more games exactly like that. It might take 5 years off my life expectancy, but I'll take 37 more games like that for the remainder of the season. Could not care less. Harjeet, how are you, my friend? First time that we're here on stream together. How did you find the weekend's action? Is there anybody's performances that changed your opinion of how they are possibly, or did you have any specific favorite game over the weekend?
Well, obviously the Liverpool. Oh, anyway, firstly, evening everybody, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think the Liverpool game changed my opinion. I think obviously we won the title last season. Thankfully, I got to go to the game on Friday, and I just feel that what I think we lacked last year, we're showing in abundance. And I think the key thing there is goals. And I think Slot sort of said it as well last season, that we're not putting teams away. And if you look at that, it reminds me a little bit of the title winning season previously under Klopp. We weren't really putting teams away. I looked at that in the ground, and even at 2-2, for about 2 minutes after the Semenyo I turned around to me and said, I think we're going to lose this. But then within 5 minutes, that's it. We just went into another gear. And I think looking at the way we were playing, I just think to myself, we've got that many weapons now that once Wirtz and Ekitike gets to even more speed, we're just going to be, I think, unstoppable. So that filled me with confidence. And we'll talk about Isak obviously later on. And the other games, to be honest, Man City looked good, but Wolves were woeful. They were woeful. But at 0-0, Wolves had a couple of chances. If their striker didn't continuously getting offside, they could have scored. I thought Arsenal and Chelsea were exactly what they were last year. And that Gyökeres fella, oh God, you know, he well, you know, I'd even Sesko when he came on. I know it's the first game, but compare him to the player we've got. The only thing that's I've just cemented my opinion on that. I think we are clear title favourites, honestly.
Yeah, nobody realistically worried me. I was in the pub watching the Arsenal and United game, and I was like, if United had in any way, shape, or form a clinical ability about them or a clinical bone in their body today, they would have been winning 4-1. Like, they created so many chances. It was scary. Harold, now forgive me. This is my first time on with yourself, Harji, and Harold, please forgive me if I do mispronounce the names. Call me a dickhead if I have pronounced the names wrong. But how did you find the weekend? Were you worried about our performance? Because obviously we have Jay here mentioning that it was fun, but without a better defense, we definitely won't win the league. My opinions on that. We've gone back and forth about that in the group chat. Personally, I don't think there was anything wrong with our defense. We conceded 10 shots, 3 of them were on target, and 2 of those were goals. And those 2 goals that were shots on target came from dispossessions in attacking phases of the game that put the defense under undue pressure that didn't need to happen, so to speak. Better control of the ball in those situations limits those shots. I'm not saying we wouldn't have conceded. I'm just saying we wouldn't have conceded in the same fashion. So for me, it doesn't necessarily ring true because last season we obviously had Robbo that didn't really have legs, the backup being Tsimikas. We had Gomez there for a little bit as well at fullback. We had Konate out for a good 10-game stretch. We'd also had Trent out for a game stretch as well. And we had Bradley there that was out for a little bit after it as well. We didn't necessarily have the most fluid of back lines and still managed to win the league at a canter. Now having fullbacks that are there that are willing to get up and down the pitch and willing to get a tackle in, sometimes to the detriment with regards to Kirkes. But players and defenders, I've always said this, and it's about any sport. And if you ever watch basketball or if you ever watch like American football or anything like that, defense is an effort stat. It's stuff that doesn't show up on a stat sheet or where it's read. And defense is effort. And you need to be willing to defend in order to be a good defender, which is where Trent always fell short. Even with those additions in Kirkes and Frimpong, do you still feel that we're vulnerable at the back on counterattacks? Or do you think that this was just a singular game where it happened and it will be looked at going forward?
I think when it comes to quality and the players we have and all that, as I've said, I feel that the players we have now are better defensively. My concern is because you always lose the ball and it's not at the right time anyhow. But the movement of the center backs, I mean, they're both all over the place. I mean, okay, they're 4-on-2, but they should move or position themselves better. That's what I'm concerned about. It's still happening on the right side. Of course, Frimpong was not on, but it's still the right side. It's the weakest side we have when Frimpong is not there or Bradley, because Konate is unpredictable. He can be Virgil van Dijk quality in 10 minutes, and then he have 5 minutes where his arms and legs and kind of Inspector Gadget all over the place. It doesn't work. So it's scary. But I do have to say one positive thing about the defending. What I noticed was the Ekitike, when it comes to set pieces, which was an Achilles heel for us last year. I don't think he had everyone, but most of the set pieces, he was the one that cleared them out. So I think he's going to be very important in the defensive of set pieces, and that will be a strengthening opposite last year. So there are good and bad, but as I said, it's the positioning. It's what we do when we lose the ball that I feel is concerning in some ways. As I said, we need to lose the ball, but we have to be better when we lose the ball.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. It's more so the point, while we are going to lose the ball, it's losing it unnecessarily when we shouldn't. Like that situation where Szoboszlai, he probably could have gotten a better touch on the ball for the second goal, and he definitely shouldn't have done what he done for the first goal. Limiting if he doesn't do either of them, or if that pass doesn't go wayward for Salah in the second goal instance.
Yeah, but
maybe
the second goal, he slips. The pass from Salah is not a perfect pass.
No, not at all. But I still feel like he could have done more for it. Like he has a history, in my own opinion, of maybe not putting a body on the line when in the Premier League you nearly have to die for 3 points, and you've seen that with Kirkes throwing himself everywhere. Frimpong, for the size of him, throws himself into every duel, and for a guy of
Robbo did the same, and when he missed, it was wide open. If that flick from Sobo had worked, he would have been a genius. He had no possibility to pass the back because everyone was going up. So it is about what you have possibility in the situation. If we can all be Odegaard and play safe and support passes all day, but okay, the flick, if that worked, it would have opened up everything. It didn't, and we conceded a goal instead.
Yeah. It's kind of that risk reward kind of a thing that I look at, and it's more just in that situation when you're already 2-1 up. I think holding the ball and being Odegaard in that situation, yes, I agree with you. I think that's what he should do. When you're 2-0 up in a game and it's coming into sort of the 60th minute, the 65th minute, holding the ball an extra set, it's more situational awareness, I feel, needs to be improved there.
But he had two people on his back. He has a split second to make a decision. So I don't know. I mean, what's also concerning is the way we fall apart when it comes to 2-1. I feel we will lose momentum, we give it away, and then we make two substitutions again, and then, as Hajit said, we kick it up a notch, and then we bulldoze them. But there is a period where I feel we are closer to losing than winning. And you, Stephen, you may have 5 years of your life expectancy to waste. I'm an old man. I don't have 5 more years.
Yeah, but you'll get to see a back-to-back Premier League, so you'll die a happy man. It'll be okay. It's the way that I look at it. Okay, we are going to move on to the bigger news of the day, because we've kind of all gone through our thoughts over the weekend, and we'll touch on everything a little bit more of the opponents' games later on in the stream. But for now, just make sure that you've liked and subscribed. Make sure that your notifications are on for all future streams and videos as well, so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching on Twitter, we've over 5,000 people watching across between Twitter and YouTube at the moment. If you're watching on Twitter or X, there is a link in the bio, or link in the stream. Use your words. There's a link in the thread down below that will bring you straight to our YouTube channel. So make sure that you jump over there. So the main news of the day is the Alexander Isak deal is off. No, it's not. It may be. We don't know. Everything's kind of up in the air at the moment, let's be perfectly honest. But the news that we know as of right now is that Brentford are being real sticklers with regards to Johan Wissa. And the issue that they have at the moment is that they're not willing to let him go for an astronomical fee for a guy with just a year left. I think I've seen something quoted in the realm of about £60 million, which is mental. And Newcastle, very rightly, are not being bent over a barrel to pay that. And they are right to do that. It would be massively silly business of them to pay £60 million for a guy that's Wissa's age and at that stage of a contract. But in doing so, it then also allows Newcastle to use the excuse, we tried, we couldn't get a striker in, so now we can't let Isak leave for the detriment of the team. Now, a couple of people that have just put in comments here, so I'll get to them first, but I want to take a look at people's opinions first of all. So, Harold, with your opinion, I'll go back around again the opposite way that I went before. Harold, what's your opinion on this, of how this Isak deal is developing? I personally don't see it happening. Not because we can't do it, but because I don't think Newcastle will sanction the sale this window. I think they'll bargain on the fact that they might risk not having him for maybe a couple of weeks, and then him realizing he's going to have to come back and play in the World Cup year to he's probably going to go to the World Cup with Sweden anyway, because it's him and Gyökeres that are the strikers. So why wouldn't he? And the Swedish manager would be ridiculously stupid not to bring him, or Gyökeres for that matter, in an international game. So, where if you were a betting man, are you going to put your money on Isak reintegrating into the Newcastle side if they don't sell him? Or do you think he's never playing for Newcastle again and he'll happily sit until January, take the fines, and then leave for a lower fee?
I don't think if Newcastle can't sign a striker, I don't think they will sell him this window. He will take the fine. He will be reintegrated. Everything will smoothen out. I mean, he's not the first player who goes on strike. I mean, Anthony Gordon did the same when he wanted to go from Everton as well. So, okay, he ended up going, but the putting on the hind legs and being difficult as a player is nothing new. I don't think they will sell him if they don't get a striker. And if they don't get a striker now, they can work through the January window, and we can buy him then, like we did with Van Dijk. Both teams get a couple of months to sit down, breathe, and do it properly, and then things will happen. I think he will come in January. If it doesn't come then, we will have another option. I don't think we will wait a year for him.
Yeah, I don't think we'll wait a year for him either. I think if he doesn't come this window, he doesn't come. I think Liverpool will very quickly move on, get a backup, and if Hugo Ekitike all of a sudden has 10 goals and 5 assists, or 10 goals and 10 assists in all competitions by the time it hits January, they'll be like, cheers, Alexander. We're grand. Cheers, Alex. Thanks. We're good. You enjoy Newcastle. We got our guy.
But do you think we have a backup plan?
I think we do. We wouldn't be putting this much time and effort into waiting for him if we didn't think there was, first of all, one, a chance of really, really getting him, or two, a very quick resolution to a backup if we don't get him.
Who do you think is the backup?
That I don't know, but I would imagine it is somebody of the ilk of a Mateta or a Wissa, hilariously. The reason I would say that is because that type of a player, and if you look at the numbers for both Mateta and Wissa, they're highly efficient strikers that require little to no service to get their goals.
Wissa is 28.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. You could, if now I wouldn't pay the 60 million that Brentford want from him. Not even a hope. Not a chance of that. I'd much rather go on half that, if even. And if that's not the case, just go get Mateta, if that's attainable, or somebody of that profile where my dream of who to get, and we already got one of them. I had 2 dream strikers coming into this summer, and one of them was Hugo Ekitike. We've gotten him. And the second one was also from the Bundesliga, in Nick Woltemade from Stuttgart. He was another guy that I really, really, really liked. But if we were to get a guy, I would think that you're going to make Hugo the tip of the spear, and then you would get a guy that requires very little service, and basically, like Diogo Jota, can take 2 shots a game and will score from one of them, which is what Chiesa can as well. Absolutely, somebody and he has the versatility to play all across the front three too, which is very helpful. But somebody like a Wissa or a Mateta, they both take about 2 shots a game, and over 50% of them are on target, and they get goals from that. It's mentally efficient that they have that little service and that high of an efficiency on that sort of a low volume of shooting. They're snipers rather than machine guns, if that makes sense. But that would essentially be who I would look at as a backup, that sort of profile, if not that specific player. Dream would be Nick Woltemade, because he's a 6'5" freak that is basically as if somebody put the agility of a leopard into a giraffe, if you ever watch him play. But that's more so where I think of it. If there is no Isak and we're making Ekitike the tip of the spear, should we target a backup, Harold? Or do you think we should go for somebody? Because you see a lot of people here mentioning Julian Alvarez from Atletico Madrid here in the comments as well. And I think he'd be even more unattainable than Alexander Isak, in my own opinion.
Yeah, I don't have a good enough grasp of how good or what type of player we want if we don't get Isak. So I trust the process. I really do. If they don't sign Isak or a backup plan, I think they do so for a reason. I mean, they have been flawless for me when it comes to signing the right players. So as long as we're not linked to any Man United players that or any players that United want, because that's a danger. When United want a player, that means it's not good enough for us.
Well, they wanted Gakpo, they wanted Gravenberch, they wanted Verge, they wanted Allison,
Yeah.
they wanted Ekitike, they wanted a lot of players that have come through well for us.
But the media have a tendency to link them to players to Liverpool. It doesn't mean they wanted them. They kind of, I feel they scout in another area.
I think I'm pretty sure with Gakpo, though, I'm nearly sure he was on the plane to United, and then he was like, nah, I'm going to Liverpool. Good luck. Bye.
There's always a rule to the exception to the rule.
Exactly. Ben, with regards to the Isak situation, how do you sort of feel it is? Like, do you think, are you of the opinion that it's still going to happen? Are you still on that, shall we call, quote unquote, delusional train that it's still going to happen and he's still going to be a Red? Or do you think it's just completely silent at the moment and they're trying to play it down in the lead up to the Newcastle game this day next week, and then maybe it just explodes after that?
My gut at the moment says the way the Newcastle hierarchy have handled business full stop this window, it's not going to happen. They don't seem to have any structure in place. Obviously, they're missing a footballing director. I think that's having a massive impact on everything they're doing. I don't see it happening, and I'm not sour about that. I think he's overpriced anyway. I take it if it did happen. I don't think it does happen, and I'm not actually that bothered. I think we can reinvest the money into assets that are probably more financially sensible. That's my opinion at the moment, and I don't see that changing. Plainly because Newcastle are lacking any structure, and you can't have a conversation, you can't negotiate with people that aren't there, and that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I'll be perfectly honest, and I think I said this when I was on stream with you last time, Ben, that I think the whole Newcastle project is dead. The PIF has basically seen that Man City and Chelsea have pulled the ladder up after them, and you can't do what they did and just buy your way straight to the top. And I think they've immediately looked at that and been like, fuck it, let's not be bothered. And that has sort of seen the lack of lack of ambition. They haven't had a lack of ambition, but more so all of the players that they've tried to target is maybe a step up from where they should be targeting. Like they're targeting where we're buying when they really should be shopping maybe a level or two below, and trying to repeat what they did with Isak and with Gordon and with the likes of Tonali and with Bruno Guimaraes and with Joe Linton, of using the data like Brentford, like Bournemouth, like Brighton all do, and like Forest are doing at the minute. They're getting a lot of nice business done, where they use the data and they let the data guide the decisions to find diamonds in the rough. Like Brighton sold Caicedo for 115 million and then went and found his replacement that they're looking to sell for another 115 million 2 years later. And they bought him for like 20 million at the time. And I said it to people at the time that whoever Brighton are targeting as the CDM to replace Caicedo is who we should be targeting, so that we don't have to pay 115 million the next time we go looking for one. But that's just the way that Tony Bloom works, considering his whole data department is backed by a massive gambling corporation that uses supercomputers. And then we have our guys that have PhDs and doctorates in theoretical physics writing our algorithms for the data as well, which is mental. So there's just a couple of questions in here from the chat that I'll throw one your way, Ben. That Curtis here mentions, I don't see a point in Newcastle keeping him if he has stated he doesn't want to play. I don't get it. Is there a world in your mind, Ben, that you see Isak reintegrating into the Newcastle squad? Because in my opinion, it's very much the second he goes and plays and scores his first goal, they're going to love him immediately again. Football fans are fickle.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that he'll have the connection with Newcastle fans now that this damage has
Hmm.
been done. Do I see him reintegrating? Absolutely. He's a striker that will bag them 20 plus goals. Um, I think the worry for Newcastle is at this moment in time, if things don't change and they can't qualify for Champions League football next season, I think they risk losing Bruno, Tonali, Gordon, all for less than what they could get them for at the moment. I think if you're Eddie Howe, you've got to be looking at that and thinking, shit, I need to get Isak on the pitch. He needs to be playing for us, even if it's just half a season. They need his goals more than anything else right now, more than we need him. And I think Newcastle fans and Newcastle know that, and I think that's why this has been so difficult for them. Partly because you don't want to let go of someone that does something for you like that, like he does. But yeah, I do see him reintegrating, and I can imagine it being within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I could see it happening within the next 3 weeks. But I could see it quite literally by game week 5 of the Premier League, of him getting back up to proper fitness and then coming in. And as Harjeet, the longer this goes on, and let's say, like, one of the questions that was asked there was obviously, does he just wait out until January? The longer that this goes on, the harder and harder it is for him to come into the fray regarding squad fitness, because we seen it last year when Chiesa joined quite literally on deadline day, having done nothing all summer and been frozen out all summer from Juventus at the time, and he barely got a look in all season. Slot doesn't seem to want to play a player until they are 110% match fit. And if you're basically taking the whole summer and half a Premier League season out with no match time in you, he's basically probably flittered and wasted a career of his life because Newcastle won't let him go. Even if we get him in January, the time it's going to take for him to get up to match fitness, it'll probably be March. And fair enough, you have him there for the run in, but realistically, do you see a world where he just sits and waits until January? And do you see that then as a feasible move for him at the time for us to move for him?
No, it's not feasible because first things first, if he doesn't move, there's no way he's not reintegrated back into the squad. He's a £150 million asset. He wants to play football. The minute he bags a goal, Newcastle fans will love him again. He'll do the old celebration and he'll do the badge and they'll be all forgotten. But we don't wait till January because he'll be cup tied. He'll have played. Chances are Newcastle will progress through. So if you progress through, you can't play for another team. In my opinion, I haven't moved away from the opinion that it's going to happen because it's the talks have been going on since March. Newcastle want to save face. He's done there. Brentford have more or less signed Ataro from Bournemouth for 45 million. I think they're just trying to recoup as much money as they can for Wissa. So I think it'll happen. The fitness, I'm not concerned because he was training at Sociedad. He's been training there with their preseason training. He hasn't played matches. He will play in the internationals. I think it's Andel Thomason, the manager of Sweden, has said he spoke out today that he'll play regardless. He goes, I just feel everything points to him moving. A lot of people in his camp are coming out on his side publicly. His managers, his players, his friends. So the move will happen. I want it to happen because I think the Jota situation hit the club hard, obviously emotionally, but secondly, he was going to be that pivotal player who would come in and back up and play up front, left, right. So I think we need Ekitike, as good as his start's been, really good. He's 22, he's young. He said, I listened to his post-match interview the other day, and he said the difference here is there's a lot less space, it's a lot faster. It's more, I find it more difficult. He said that in his post-match interview to the guys, and I think we need for him to be able to bed in when he's on his highs, just bring him out a bit and have that superstar Isak ready. I think it's a must. We have to get him now. If we don't, I feel sorry for the lad because he's obviously been sold. You're coming to us 100%. Newcastle will. He's done there. They'll get their players in. The saving face. I'll have massive egg on my face if he doesn't come after 48 hours after. I think after the game, because it's already going to be regardless of the situation, Newcastle away is always tough. We never do well there. I think they just don't want that signing just to agitate. I think it'll be a very hostile atmosphere if he had signed. I think it will happen. Isak comes in, and I think to myself, we will have all the weapons. And I actually think this team isn't being built to retain the Premiership. I think this is a team that will beat anybody over 90 minutes. And I think we're gunning for the Champions League. I really do. And it feels like a Real Madrid type build-up of a squad where we're saying, right, we're really disappointed where we got knocked out against Paris. We just didn't have the quality in certain key moments. We're not going to let that happen again. So, Isak, number 9 shirt is ready and waiting for him.
Yeah.
And I'd love him to be a Liverpool.
Yeah, but I just don't personally think it's happening. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Yeah. Very happy to be proven wrong. I just personally don't think it's happening due to Newcastle and their utter incompetence and inability to get anything over the line. I genuinely believe they will be rejected by Bonnie Blue at this point. It is just utterly shambolic that's going on over there. And as Ben mentioned, they have no director of football. It's basically Eddie Howe and his nephew doing the negotiations. Like it is absolutely scandalous. But we are basically going to leave it there for that particular topic, and we will start moving on to the other topics. So if you haven't already, please do make sure to like and subscribe. If you have done that already, make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We've over 7,000 people watching us currently at the moment across both YouTube and X, or Twitter as it used to be known. So if you're currently watching on X or Twitter, make sure you jump down into the comments below this stream. You will see a link straight to the YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe and put those notifications on. But next topic. With the talk of Alexander Isak, we then also had the talk of Hugo Ekitike, because as we've just mentioned, as Charjita, you were just mentioning there, Hugo Ekitike has essentially won round 1 of 38 in the Premier League striker roulette, shall we call it. João Pedro didn't perform very well. Gyökeres had an absolute stinker. Sesko, while he can be forgiven for a little bit, I thought he looked quite well when he did come on. He didn't do enough, but that's also, he didn't have the biggest of cameos. I'm trying to think who else bought strikers. That's really it, isn't it? Off the top of my head, that really sort of the bigger teams that bought strikers, because Haaland was Haaland. That's fine. I don't think he'll perform at the same heights as he did the past couple of years. I think he'll probably be similar to last year, 25 goals, thereabouts, as if that's anything to be sneezed at. I think Ekitike will probably come out as one of the best strikers in the league this season with what he can do all over the ball and all over the pitch. But with that being said, Ben, having seen all of the strikers over the weekend, you've seen Gyökeres, you've seen Sesko, you've seen Haaland, obviously, against basically relegation fodder in Wolves. You've seen João Pedro as well, who looked very good in the Club World Cup. Didn't really look that great in his appearance over the weekend, and against a Crystal Palace team that our own Hugo Ekitike got a goal against not a week previous. Of those 4 big strikers from those teams, were you surprised by any performances, or was it exactly how you suspected?
I don't think surprised. I think, like you said, Haaland is Haaland. He knows the league. He was always going to perform. I think in terms of the three new lads coming in, I think Liverpool play the most attacking football of the 3 teams, probably the most cohesive at the moment. And with the addition of Wirtz coming in, a proper number 10 who can play passes like he does, it's not a surprise again to me that Ekitike has got off the mark quicker than the other two. As you say, it's early days. 1 week in, I think it's very naive to jump to any conclusions to start saying, Ekitike is going to, maybe fall in just behind Haaland in terms of the goal tallies. But it's promising. His movement is very good on and off the ball. He physically looks like he can handle himself for this league. And I think the way he's linked up so far has been quite positive. He's not looking out of his depth, which I think, based on what we've seen so far, your likes of Gorkrez hasn't quite settled into that Arsenal attack. I don't think it's quite as fluid, and I think it shows in the way they play. So I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think this is probably a question that needs to be asked in 5 or 6 weeks' time when we've seen players embed themselves a bit more. They've had a couple of games with each other, and we'll see what's happening then.
Yeah, it obviously very, very early doors yet, Harjeet, when it comes to the striker situation. But for those people who, like me, spent a majority of the last season watching Ekitike in the Bundesliga, I personally was delighted that City went and got Marmoush, and we got to see Ekitike be by himself for half a season, because I think that's what really sort of solidified the move to us, that they were like, okay, this basically it's confirmation bias. He's just shown why we want him. But with the strikers that have been around, obviously we have Johnny here mentioned that both Richarlison and Kudus were nuts at the weekend, and I will say it was Burnley, but props where props are due. Richarlison decided to have his one good game of the year, and he just decided to blow his load early. It happens. But in your own opinion, Harjeet, on the striker front, very, very, very small sample size. But I'll ask the same question that I asked for Ben. Did anybody surprise you or succeed or fall short of your expectations?
So I think, firstly, let's start with our man, TK. I think he surprised me. I knew he was good. And the key thing for me was he gives us, so in my mind, he's everything that Núñez should have been. They have the same attributes: pace, power, dribbling. They can go. Their runs into channels are amazing. They play off the shoulder as well if they need to. The difference between him and Núñez is he can link play up. He could dribble past people. He's in control of his bodily functions as he plays football, as Núñez wasn't. So, but he did surprise me how well he's fitted in. I think that's just shows that he really wants to play for the club. João Pedro, I've never rated João Pedro. He's not scored 100. He's not scored. I've looked at his stats. I was just looking at his stats. He's never been a prolific goal scorer. At Watford, he's in at over 80 games, he only scored 20 goals. Fluminense, he scored 4 in 25, and at Brighton, he scored 19 in nearly 60 games. That's not a striker you spend 60, 70 million on. And he's a player who in the World Club Cup, it was just something. He just went there. He's on an adrenaline rush. He went out there to prove something. No, I think Gyökeres. I actually think Gyökeres would have been a better player for United. I just think he suits their system a lot better, running in behind, pace, power.
I think they both.
I actually think Sesko would have been better for Arsenal. It's like when it's like when Conte and Mourinho, Lukaku and Morata, they wanted they got the wrong strikers, and I think they're in the wrong teams. I think they both are decent, but in the wrong. I think we've really come out top for Ekitike, and like I said, I think he's only 22. I like his attitude. I like the way he very humble when he comes across, a young kid, and I just think to myself, it's early days. I'm not really worried about the goals. I just feel that his all-round play already for us is that, he's linking everything up. The way he set up Gakpo and these little things you look at, is that the way he laid the ball, and I love Nunes. I wanted Nunes to succeed. He was my all-time favorite player. I was so invested in him. I remember the time when he went through against Brentford, and when he chipped the ball over and went through, and I was in my mind, I would have had a heart attack if he never scored. And it was like, so that invested in him. And I feel that Ekitike, the link-up play, he brings people into play, so intelligent, powerful, strong. I think to myself, yeah, this guy is he's the standout for me. And I've heard a stat that there's only 7% of fantasy football players who had him in their team. I think that's jumped up to about 38% after round one. So just shows the impact he's had. So yeah, I think he's the standout.
Yeah. I'd agree with you on that. One thing that I liked about Ekitike, as you mentioned, about his humble sort of side, he has a hunger, and the reason I say that is not a lot of people will probably know this unless they actually looked into it as well. He came through Reims and then went to PSG, couldn't really break through at PSG, was on a big salary, happily took a pay cut and went to Frankfurt to make a name for himself, and now is gotten his big move. Very, very few young French players, when they get to PSG, want to move away from there. And then moving from France to Germany in order to make a name for himself, for me, speaks volumes of the player's character himself. So that for me was one of the big things that I liked about him. Then you couple in the technical ability. He's like a winger that plays striker, in my opinion. He's a 6'5" winger that plays striker. And now two of our front three are 6'5" in Gakpo and Ekitike, which is absolutely nuts. And both have a rocket of a right foot. So it'll be really, really fun to watch the two of them interchange, switch back and forth. Sometimes Ekitike might be on the left wing or the left half space, and Gakpo will be in the box, and then it'll switch and it'll be the opposite way. But Harold, with the strikers and how they performed over the weekend, you obviously had Gyökeres and Sesko. That was the big one for Arsenal, that they wanted at least one of them. I personally think they got the wrong one. I think they should have went for Sesko. And you could even see it in the way they were playing on the day with United and Arsenal, that the way United were attacking sort of on the back foot, putting a man on the last shoulder, long balls over the top for somebody to run into in transition, that would have suited a Gyökeres a whole lot better than it would have a Sesko. And then you looked at Arsenal and how they were playing, and it was very much slow build-up, methodical, death by 1,000 cuts. That's more of a Sesko setup than it ever is a Gyökeres setup. But I'll throw the same question over to yourself as I did with Ben and Harjeet. Did any of the strikers that performed this weekend between Ekitike, Sesko, Gyökeres, João Pedro, that have joined their new teams in the Big Six, did any of them supersede or fall short of your expectations, or was it about what you expected?
I have to follow my colleagues here. Hugo surprised me positively, not only in the offensive, but also, as I mentioned, in the defensive set pieces. I think the way we play football, the way we attack, the way we play, makes it easier for him to fit into that squad. Instead of, like you mentioned, Arsenal and Sesko and Gyökeres and United or whatever they were. And the one thing we can't knock at all is confidence, because he's in a better team with better players. He can perform well in the start. He gets the confidence, he gets the goals, he gets the assist. He starts good. It's easier. It gets easier when you're tired. It's easier in a new country. It's easier because you're flowing forward. When it comes to Gyökeres and Sesko, I think they are both very good strikers, but they will need much more time. And when it comes to Arsenal, I don't see them as a very good attacking side, the way we are. I mean, they have a little bit more, as you say, death by 100 knives. My English is not so good, but they are more. They are more. They take time. And so it's a different play of style. I mean, I don't think Hugo would have worked in any of those teams. But I think they will do good. They will do good, but it will take a lot more time. I think Sesko in United, I think he will flourish before Gyökeres, because I see Cunha and Bumo. I think they were a positive for United, so I think they will link up faster than Gyökeres in Arsenal.
I think so as well. I think if you take, so the way that I looked at it is, it's like the 80-20 rule. Both Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz gave you 80% of what you wanted in a striker. They just maybe lacked that sort of clinical nature as a goal scorer. But they provided everything else for Arteta's system: the link-up play, the pressing, the intelligence, the ability to find a pass, the ability to both press intelligently and intensely. It just so happened that Gabriel Jesus is made of glass and Kai Havertz just fell apart last season, unfortunately. I said it throughout the summer. I said Arsenal will have the pick of the bunch for all of the strikers and they'll still pick the wrong one. And they did.
Yeah.
It was the way that I seen it happening. Like, they needed somebody that had the ability to be able to build up in the link up. And the problem is now is Gyökeres gives you the 20% that they couldn't, but you now lose the 80%. So you're losing 80% to get the 20% that you didn't have previously, when you were probably better off as a team just keeping the 80%, if that makes sense to anybody. So
it does. And I think Arsenal plays a style where they're I feel it's sometimes hard to see what they're trying to do when they attack. I mean, on the counter is one thing. We all do the same thing, is run and try to score. But when they're trying against low-lying teams or in important matches, it's harder to see a plan. And that's frustrating for a striker, any striker, no matter how good you are.
It's almost as if after a counter-attack, it's just everybody get up the pitch and hope. It seems to be fine until they get to the final third, and then they just fall apart.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, we try to pass around the box a bit, and if that doesn't work, lamp it in, kick it in, and see how it goes.
But the funnier thing about that is again, Sesko would have worked better for Arsenal because of their not reliability, but over reliance on set pieces. Gyökeres in the last 4 years has scored 6-headed goals out of about 80 attempts. And you've now just taken him and put him into the team that is literally nicknamed Set Piece FC. It just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever from a stylistic or tactical standpoint at all. It's very much, I feel that this was Andrea Berta basically hammering this home that no, fuck your Sesko, we're getting Gyökeres and this is it. And I don't think Arteta wanted Gyökeres, which in itself is probably already starting off on the wrong foot, and he's going to have to adapt to get him in there, and I don't think he will. I think he'll just continue to put Kai Havertz in there instead of him by the time it hits Christmas. Man, it's just going to be a waste of signing.
And many of his goals come from penalties, and they already have one for that. So,
yeah, like, are they going to take Saka or Odegaard off penalties? I don't particularly think so.
No.
Exactly, like neither one of them. But in saying that, it's not as if Saka scores many at all. I think since March of 2024, and you can Google this because this is true, since March of 2024, Bukayo Saka has 6 non-penalty goals. That is 18 months and 6 non-penalty goals. That's a goal every 3 months for those who aren't good at maths. But I've been told he's world class. Is he bollocks? But we're going to move on to our last topic of this evening, and we're going to talk about sort of surprise packages and what teams impressed us over the weekend of the Premier League sort of slate. But before we do that, do please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure if you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. Nearly 8,500 people watching us at the moment on X or Twitter. So if you can, jump down into the comments below. You'll see a link straight to our YouTube page. Make sure you jump over there and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, have your notifications on so that you never miss out on a stream as well. But one of the questions that I seen earlier from Frenzy is his name, is after watching the weekend's fixtures, lads, who has been your surprise package of the weekend? I'll start with that one, and it was Sunderland. Now, I thought Sunderland done a lot of good business over the summer. They've signed an absolute gaggle of players. They have jumped up to I think it's fifth in spending, which immediately sinks any of the whole PSR out boys that, we're smaller teams. It's there to protect the big teams. Okay, why is Sunderland outspending? And they've only come up this year. Leeds as well have outspent people. But no, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Aston Villa, because they spend so much silly money, all of a sudden now can't buy anybody. Yes, because you spend silly money. But I digress. That's a topic for a whole other stream. I could bitch for an hour about PSR and people cry arson about it. But for me, it was Sunderland. I thought they looked very good. I thought they looked very, very good. And I have a sneaking feeling that they'll be one of the teams to break the mold of the past few seasons and be one to stay up. I feel other teams are more at risk. I could see Brentford being at risk. I could see Leeds, Burnley, given they're at risk. I could see West Ham being at risk if they don't basically pull the finger out and fire Potter fairly soon. I could see Wolves being a big risk. They just look like a championship team against City, and City didn't even get out of second gear against it, which is why I'm not really holding any praise for them in that game. They played relegation fodder, in my opinion. But that is more or less who I would have had as my surprise package. But I shall pass it over to my panel mates. I know a lot about PSR, and I know a lot more than an awful lot of people that like to talk about it on Twitter. Yes, United dropped 200 million because they have an income of about 700 million. PSR is that you can't lose 115 million, 105 million over a 3-year period. I'm not even going to get into it. I have neither the time nor the crayons to begin explaining it. But Ben, I will pass it over to you first. Of the teams that played, rather than the players that played over the weekend, was there anybody that jumped out at you as a big surprise package? Obviously, mine was Sunderland. Would you have been the same opinion, or do you think anybody else jumped out?
Yeah, I think Sunderland's are the surprise package in a positive light. I think, Forest beating Brentford, they look convincing, but I don't think that's a surprise based on how they played last season, and they've managed to retain most of their key players. I don't see that as a shock. Just got the results up here as well. I don't think there's any other shocks to the system. Tottenham maybe looks slightly more. Tottenham looks slightly more cohesive than what I thought they might. I appreciate it's against a newly promoted Burnley side. You'd expect them to win 3-0. But I do, again, I think a little bit like a United, they will have some sort of impact on the top four. Maybe not making the top four, but I think they will have a say in who makes the top four. I could see them being a difficult team to break down. But I don't think there's any surprise. I think more of the surprise of the first game week comes from possibly how unprepared a lot of the teams look. You look at Chelsea, you look at Villa, Newcastle, Wolves. Again, I appreciate there's a lot of business. Some of those lower down teams have struggled to recruit. They've had their players taken. They've struggled to recruit. But there's a lot of teams that don't look anywhere near ready for a Premier League season. And I think that we will see a big divide between the top 8 teams and the rest of the pack this year. That's what I'm thinking at the moment based on what we've seen this week.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be about right. I can see the top 4 being its own tier, and then I can see a gap, and then I can see from 4 to 10 kind of being a bit of a scrap, and then then the bottom half just falls away after that. That's where I can see it. Harjeet, with regards to a surprise package, either good or bad, was there anybody that jumped out at you over the weekend of fixtures?
Yeah, it's I like to watch teams closely the first couple of weeks, and especially when Liverpool are out the way early. And I think actually the first team that jumped out was Newcastle, because generally all around from box to box and even in and around the box, they were very impressive. They first game away at Villa Park, they totally controlled that game, and they lacked a striker. I think not really. I just think the decisions in and around the box when it came to that, they didn't Barnes, don't really rate him. He's a bit rash, but yeah, I thought they positively. I looked at them and thought, you know what? Actually, looking at them, I think they could get in the top four. Spurs winning 3-0. I think the thing with Spurs is their manager can make them play in different ways. I still think, fundamentally, you can just rip through the middle of Spurs because they haven't got that. They're still weak and a bit rash. And Burnley had a lot of great chances, to be honest. And I think the rest of the Arsenal. So I watched Arsenal yesterday and just to have a laugh because I was hoping Man United would absolutely capitulate. But I just put the stats up now, and as we were talking, and the eye test for me was that United dominated that match. I thought, and I looked at it, and I'm just looking at it now. Arsenal had 38% possession. They had 9 shots and three on target, whereas United had 22 shots. And I look at that and I think to myself, they just got overrun, and there's nothing changed there for me. And I think actually Arsenal and Chelsea didn't look. Chelsea looked exactly the same. Couldn't break down a low mid-block team. And I'm looking at. I think Newcastle will play a big factor in who wins the title. I think Man City looked reinvigorated. Wolves are poor, but they look really strong. So yeah, for me, I think the two that stood out for me were Man City, Newcastle, and everybody else is much of a muchness. I think Sunderland. Yep, I think the two that bad. I think bad news for them would be Brentford, and I think West Ham. I think West Ham are a mess, and I think them two. We're looking over the shoulders.
I think West Ham changes. The sooner they fire Potter, the better, in my own opinion. I think he's just a dreadful manager. And you will be right in that as well. The way that I looked at that United game, I was watching it in the pub, and I was like, if United had a clinical ball in their body, they're 4-1 up here. And Arsenal just don't look like they've improved at all from last season. If they're the same team that they were last season, I can see them falling to 3rd, maybe even 4th in the table. The way that I look at it with how those teams are kind of set up is that Chelsea have a terrible goalkeeper. Chelsea have a terrible back line. They have an okay midfield and they have a good attack. Arsenal have a good goalkeeper. They have a good defence. They have an okay midfield and they don't really have a cohesive attack. City are very similar to Chelsea in that they have a very good front line. They have an okay midfield until the likes of Kovacic and Rodri come back. Then it gets better. But that's not until October, and you might be 10, 15 points behind Liverpool at that point, or whoever's leading the title. And then their backline and keeper is just shocking with City as well. And then you take a look at us. We've the best goalkeeper in the world. We've one of the best centre-backs in the world. We've the best left-back from last year in the Premier League. We've one of the most versatile right-sided players from the Bundesliga in the last 2 seasons. We have Konate that, when on his day, is the second-best centre-back in the world, only second to the fella that stood beside him. Our midfield was one of the best pivots in the world last season. And now we've gone and gotten the best German in a generation. We've the best right-winger to ever gracefully kick a football. And we've gotten one of the best young strikers in the world and possibly may go and get the best striker in the world, not named Erling Haaland, on top of it. I don't see... Arsenal haven't even strengthened to the point to topple us from last season, and we've already taken 3 or 4 steps ahead from there. Harold, do you foresee anyone over the slate of the weekend? I'd ask you the same question of who was your sort of surprise package for good or for bad. But of the teams like Arsenal, United, Chelsea, City, Spurs, do you see any of them even competing with us from last season? Never mind this season now with the strides that we've taken forward.
I think City will be our closest rival. I have to give Chelsea a bit more slack than maybe Ben does, because they've started the preseason very late due to the Club World Cup. So I think they will get better, but that will explain a lot of the lack of preparation for them. But when it comes to, I think Arsenal was really poor. I think this could easily be a kind of a middle season for them in some way, because they burnt so much powder last year, didn't win anything, and yeah, I think they can struggle more this year. I don't think they will get second place at all. I don't think they will be necessarily very close either. I think United kind of, well, not positively surprised me, but they looked decent to be a United side. I fear they can do well. They will not be in the European place, but they will have an impact, as others have mentioned here, and in who wins the league. I think Tottenham looked good for once. It's early for them. They have a new manager. They have new style of play. But kudos, and Richarlison finally linked up. So if they get a good start, I think they can have a good season. But as you said, Stephen, we are the team that were the best and taken most steps this window. So if we're kind of lucky with the injuries, and Konate has more days on and off and that kind of thing, I think we will do real well. My issue is when we come to the business end of the season, when everything's kind of on the line, and we have fatigue in the squad, maybe an injury here, an injury there on key players. What will happen then when it comes to Champions League and all the other things we want?
Yeah, it's the question mark for a lot of teams, and the unfortunate balancing act that you then have is you can only register 25 players, and unfortunately you can't have 25 starters. That's just the way that it is, and we need to obviously balance the squad that way. But it is going to be a very exciting season, and I will happily take 37 more 4-2 wins in that manner, where Chiesa scores a winner at the end of every one. I will be in heaven if that happens. I'll be eating pasta every night. It'll be beautiful. But we are going to finish things there. I want to thank the over 9,000 people that have been watching us so far. Thank you so much for watching us. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching us on X or Twitter, make sure that you jump on down into the comments below the stream, and you will be able to see the link straight to our YouTube page and to the video itself. So make sure you're around for that as well. But from myself, Harjeet, Ben, and Arnold, thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday evening. And we hope that we will have much more positive news, I suppose, rather than Brentford basically telling us we're not getting Isak to come during the week. We'll be back again with a stream on Wednesday from 6 p.m., an hour earlier than the regular streaming time of 7 p.m. So make sure you're around for that. Michael will be hosting that, so hopefully we'll have a good stream and some good news by then as well. We'll then have another stream on Friday at 7 p.m. back to the normal time with Mihai, and then Charlie will be back on Sunday for possibly a preview of the what shall we call it? I can't even think of a name. We'll come up with one during the week, like the Rumble in the Jungle, for when we have to travel to St. James's Park for the cage match, and the winner takes Isak, basically. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their Monday and a wonderful rest of their week. From myself, Harjeet, Ardald, and